Such a pleasure to speak with you. Congrats on Now You See Me, Now You Don't. This is such a fun movie. My favorite scene in the film is kind of that the segment with the mansion with all the different perspective tricks and the cool rooms. It really leans into the magic element. And I saw some really cool set photos. How cool is it that you actually got to create some of those perspective tricks and do it legit practically rather than it just be like purely CGI spectacle?
That's awesome that you appreciated that. That's my favorite section of the film as well. And as a fan of the franchise entering into it, there was a lot of things from the previous movies that I wanted to embrace and to continue on, these great characters and obviously the tone and the fun of it all. But then there's some other things too that I was trying to maybe reconcile. One example is how Henley was in the first movie and then it was Lula and there was really no explanation. So I really wanted to kind of like make it all right. But another thing that was really important to me is that I felt like there was times in the previous two movies where they relied too heavily on visual effects. And for me, it took away some of what I love about magic. And for me, magic is when you see it right before your very eyes and not manipulating with VFX or editing or anything else. So I wanted to do as much as possible in camera, practical, etc. And so this magic castle, for lack of the chateau, was an opportunity to just fill it with as much rooms that could only exist in a place like that, a magic building. And so the Ames room, which is the perspective one you're referring to, where one person's really big and one person's really small, was super cool because usually those rooms are just kind of squares with some grids. So to have like all the detail of a 19th century chateau, everything had to be custom 3D printed to fit exactly in the thing because all their perspectives are off. Like everything that looks square is actually like a trapezoid. And it took a lot of figuring out in order to achieve, but I'm thrilled with the way it ended up. The room perhaps I'm most proud of is that what we call the infinity staircase, which is that mirrored room that Woody was in. And I basically challenged the production designer to figure out how can we come up with an environment that looks kind of like an MC Escher painting where you don't know quite what's right side up and what's right side down and you're kind of lost. And it ended up being so cool because there was times where we would frame up the reflection and you think that's Woody, and then you pan over and then you see him actually enter frame. And it was just such a cool thing that I don't think anybody on the crew had ever been in anything like that. And when Woody first walked in there, like his mind was truthfully blown. The spinning corridor we've seen obviously in movies dating back to, Fred Astaire, but it was really cool just as a dork to get to make my own and get to stage an action sequence in it. And then the mirrored hallway is something also that we've seen in movies. But what was kind of cool about ours is because we can now erase the reflection of the camera person, we could be a lot more dynamic. So the only VFX we employed in both that and the mirror room were just painting out the cameraman. We weren't adding anything. It was just we were in a position where we could shoot into the mirror and then know that it didn't matter if we saw the guy with the camera.
That's also cool. Like the fact that you guys pulled this off is so incredible. I love the film, and I was so delightfully surprised when Lizzie Kaplan showed up. I didn't know she was going to be in the movie, and when Lula was mentioned earlier, I was like, well, at least they're not acting like she didn't exist. So I was happy with that as a fan of hers, and then I was on cloud nine when she showed up. How special was it that surprise like really stayed intact? Because like my whole screening room like had a bit of a pop when she showed up, so that was fun to
Oh, that's
experience.
awesome. Yeah, I mean, that makes me so happy. Um, you know, I had the experience on Zombieland where we had this huge cameo with Bill Murray, and we worked really hard to not have that leak through all the marketing and through all the promotion and everything else. And we really relied on even people who were going to the theater to like say, listen, there's a part in the movie, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's really awesome. And like, they don't want to spoil it because there's such a joy of that experience of like not expecting something and then being surprised. So we took a similar approach with this, where Lizzie wasn't in any of the marketing materials, and we really tried to keep it a secret, and then asked people who had seen the movie to just, you know, preserve those secrets for other people and not spoil anything. And I think people appreciate the joy they experience and wanting, to share that joy as opposed to spoiling it. So yeah, I'm thrilled with it all worked out. But it was really important to me that we have both women in the movie because as a fan, I didn't love how they just kind of swapped out one for the other.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned multiple times that you were a fan of these movies because I think it really tells here. And there's always like an inherent goofiness to this franchise. But like you're very respectful to what came before, and this film manages to shake it up with the new characters. But there's also just like inherent respect to everything that happened before. Do you feel like that's really important when you're doing coming into a franchise? Because like obviously the fans love those movies, so the creative should love it too. Like, so can you speak to
Yeah,
coming
no,
into
you
a
basically
franchise?
said it. Like I really I made this movie for the fans. Like and I had the benefit of doing that as a fan myself. So I kind of just the whole time thought to myself, what would I want to see? Obviously the script was a starting place, but once I got involved, I was shaping the script truly from the perspective of like a fan of these movies. What's the most fun version of this? Because you can say what you want about the Now You See Me franchise, but it's certainly fun above all else. And that's all I wanted to provide for the audience was just like a really fun, kind of just classic theater experience of popcorn movie where you're just going to like have um, you know, some twists and turns in the stories, some great performances by some great actors, laughter, action, suspense, magic, most of all. But yeah, I feel like I'm glad you felt as a fan that it satisfied because that's all I ever intended to do was just make it, kind of if it's been a 10-year wait, it'd be shame if like we didn't just deliver entirely on the hopes and expectations of the loyal audience.
And my last question for you, you spent all this time setting up all these characters, everybody's brought back together, and with four coming up, you really get to play with all these pieces now. What's most exciting about having done all this work here and really getting to let go with four in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited. I really loved the experience of making this movie. These actors are all terrific. They also just happen to love working together. I knew that was true of the original cast, but the three new kids like just folded in seamlessly and everybody just kind of fell in love and it was really beautiful. We're all kind of sad, honestly, that Rosamund won't be in the next one because she also was, just so fun. We all hung out. We were in Budapest and Abu Dhabi and just we had great time making the movie. And so um yeah, I feel really lucky to be able to continue telling the story and am excited to see where it goes. And I want to, yeah, kind of just take what we built in this last one and then, bring it to the next level and keep pushing it forward.
I can't wait to see it. I'm glad you mentioned Rosamund too, because she's just having the time of her life in this film. It's such a
Yeah,
fun
she's
performance.
so delicious as a villain. Like she chews the scenery, but it's like the best, like that's all I wanted out of from her was to just make Veronika that somebody that you just absolutely love to hate because she's just, just so watchable.